for me, I think that once I came to faith, and then I started reading books, I thought, wait a minute. All these years, I've been living in a world where there's no evidence for God, and all the smart people know God doesn't exist. And now I'm thinking, wait a minute, that's not right. And then I keep discovering voices and people and books and things that, where have they been hiding all these years? And you realize we live in a culture that is so secular that you don't see this evidence. And so it's been a passion of mine. I really believe it's the Lord's calling on my life in various ways, sometimes very obliquely, sometimes more explicitly, to help people see the evidence is real. It's everywhere. And you've just been living in a world that won't look in this direction. And so I feel, whether it's through Socrates in the City or through the books I write or through anything that I do, to help people see that, on my radio show, to say that there are these amazing people who believe this stuff. And, if you turn on the TV, you'll never find them. I grew up in a world that they didn't exist.
Yeah, once you've bought into the Christian faith, as I have, as you have, you begin to realize that there is a concerted effort by the world, the flesh, and the evil one to conspire to show us that you're an idiot, God doesn't exist. And whenever the Christian is portrayed, very, very, very often, he's the psycho, the racist, the idiot.
Yeah. Well, and that's the world.
Which is really interesting, actually. If you were just to try to assess that from a natural point of view, like, why think that, since that's clearly not true?
Well, that's how you know we're in a spiritual battle. It's not just whatever. We're in a spiritual battle. And there is, just the rank hostility to faith. It's so interesting. If I mentioned to you before we started talking here that I'm writing a book on the American Revolution, and one of the things that has to be part of the book, because it's so obvious, is that the British upper classes, mainly in Georgian England, had become not just irreligious, but boldly irreligious, boldly sinful and sneering about, whatever, biblical morality. And Wilberforce, I wrote a book called Amazing Grace about William Wilberforce. He grew up in that world where to be a serious Christian, you would be mocked and sneered. There was a viciousness against it. It wasn't just, well, we're not Christian. There was a vicious hatred for people of sincere faith. And you think, why would that be? And so many people in the United States, which was then, of course, the 13 colonies, were people of simple, serious Christian faith. I mean, it was just, many of them had just migrated here for those reasons. It was part of the culture. It was just who we were in the 13 colonies. But the attitude of many of the British elites toward them was very sneering and nasty. And you think, well, why would that be? And it's obvious that there's a kind of they feel your piety makes them feel guilty.
I think that's
so
right.
They have to hate you.
I think if the church tomorrow changed its position on sexual morality and said, actually, it turns out we're wrong, it's all relative, do whatever you want, go bananas, then there would be a mass acceptance of Christianity.
Well, you already see it, because there has been a shift in many churches, and this is what I try to stand against, to soften our views on this and this and this and this. And it really is fascinating, because you don't, that is the one, I guess it's the one most threatening thing that you tell me.
You know why
what
I think
to do.
It is? Because the world doesn't get upset with us when we condemn insider trading and racism. I think it's that without God, imagine a scenario in which God doesn't exist, which I don't think you can do, but for the thought experiment, the highest form of pleasure and transcendence is the sexual act.
Oh, it's the most sacred thing there is. God designed this glorious, sacred thing. And again, that's the point. So if you're the devil, what will you attack? What will you try to rip away?
Yeah.
And I think it's funny, because it was Jordan Peterson, of all people, who made me notice this recently. But the image, and I see one on your wall here, the image of the mother and child, that was for most of the centuries of the West, the Christian West, it was the most sacred image, the mother and child, It's just fundamental. What does it mean to be a woman? Look, this is the greatest woman who ever lived. The mother and the child. That idea that the greatest thing a woman could ever be is a mother. It's sacred and beautiful. That was part of the culture. That was part of Christendom, whatever. The idea of the father as the self-sacrificial, that I will die for my family, whatever. So Jesus is the ultimate man. Mary's that idea, of course, in our lifetimes and longer than our lifetimes, has been torn down and torn down and torn down. So God's idea of the family, of the mother and the father having sexual union to create life, this absolutely glorious, transcendent idea, which is the picture of the bride of Christ, and it's so beautiful. So to have that torn away and have this materialist lie say, you know what, you're just material, and it's just a sexual act.
Right, but the imagery back to Sex and the City of these effeminate men and their free whores. This is what's extolled. This is what's raised up for our admiration, and
that's exactly that. I mean, and it's so. I mean, yeah. How do you get away from the idea that ultimately it's satanic? Because where does it lead? Does it lead to anything good?
No.
Can it? No, it cannot. It's like, you're kicking against the goads. You're betting against the house. God created reality, and at the end of the day, it cannot.
God will forgive
work.
You, but nature will not. Yeah,
that's. I don't know who said that, but I like that.
Kick the crap out of you.
Yeah.
Wow. So why did you leave Greek Orthodoxy? Thanks for watching that clip with Eric Metaxas. Click the link below to watch the entire interview. It'll definitely be worth your time.